Dude, honestly, I totally get it. Like, I know why monkeys like this stuff. It's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie to you. I feel like I understand Curious George on a much deeper level now. You know what I'm saying? Today's video, though, is actually a lot more introspective on monkeys and apes. It's actually a video about the planet of... Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Am I the only one who, like, completely gets messed up on those names? Speaking of names, I'm Dawson, and you're probably tired of this intro, so let's get into the video. So yeah, this video is kind of a review of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes and a little bit of an analysis of some of the things that we saw and what it could mean for the future of the franchise. This is the fourth installment in the Planet of the Apes movies, not including anything that came out pre-2010, the Mark Wahlberg, Tim Burton reboot, and all like the original ones from the 60s and 70s. To start off, this movie has a great cast of characters. This franchise does a really good job of making the characters who are, not human, they're mostly apes or chimpanzees, feel a lot more human than even some of the actual human characters. There's a lot of great ideas behind each of the person's drives throughout the movie. Each of the characters' motivation has a very emotional center to it. Starting off with the main character Noah, this movie is kind of almost a revenge plot for him, redemption. Within the first 30 minutes of this movie, we see Noah's tribe get taken by this mystery group of other gorillas that we are unaware of who they are or what they belong to. So he spends the majority of the movie trying to get his tribe back and make up for those lost in this raid of the camp. That being said, I think in terms of this plot, the trailers for this movie actually did a really good job of hiding the plot. Nowadays, trailers kind of give way too much away, just of what's happening in the movie, and I'm actually super glad that this did not touch on that. It kind of gave us enough visuals to be like, this is going to be a cool movie, and didn't get too much into the plot details, so I was consistently surprised with the plot as I watched the film. There aren't a lot of crazy characters that I would say in this movie are super worth noting, except for Proximus maybe, who is the villain of this movie. He's the main antagonist, and he is the king of this Kingdom of the Apes. And he is super good in this. He's very menacing. You can feel his threat throughout the film, but he just isn't in it a lot. It kind of reminds me of Gore the God Butcherer in Thor Love and Thunder, where we get this amazing performance and this cool villain, but we don't get to see enough of it for us to really feel its impact. I even had this issue a little bit in Dune Part 2 with Fade Rautha. We got a lot of him in the film kind of just talking to his uncle. We didn't get to see what he was fully capable of before Paul killed him. So that's something that I definitely wish we got more of in this movie. Even though it was already pretty long, I would have appreciated at least like just another 10 minutes of just footage of Proximus being his character and really allowing us to feel the threat he poses. His actor, Kevin Durand, he does a really good job playing villains. He played a military officer who was a villain in Lost, and ever since I saw him in that role, I've kind of just associated him with being the bad guy because he was a really good bad guy in that show. So he carries that pattern on into this movie. Another character in this movie is the character they call Nova or May. She is the human in this. I would have liked to see her character build more of a bond with Noah, but we didn't really, again, get to see a lot of that. They kind of more are working together like as a means to an end, which I actually think works a lot for their scenario because humans and apes are very against each other in this franchise, and I think them kind of only working with each other to center back to what they really want is the most realistic. I just think my opinion of it was a little bit swayed because going in, I thought they were going to have more of a bond than what they actually did end up having, so that's partially just on my expectations. Aside from that, I think her character is pretty cool. I like her plot in this movie. I like her motivations to basically prevent Proximus from getting the human technology at all costs while also trying to retrieve some of that human technology to help her fellow humans out. The last major character in this movie that I would say is really important to the plot is actually Caesar. For those of you who don't know, Caesar was the main character in the past 3 films, and while he isn't actually in this movie, you really still feel his impact. He was the leader of the original Apes movement, the one who really led the apes from their primitive state to their now enhanced intelligence way of living. And so he is kind of like a god to them, right? Almost all of the apes in this movie know who he is and reference him throughout the film, his way of doing things, his way of believing, and it's almost like a religion. It kind of feels to me the same as how Tony Stark was in Spider-Man Far From Home, right? He wasn't alive, he wasn't there to guide Peter, but his actions and the way that he did things were still very much prominent in driving forth the plot of the movie, right? It is seen in all the characters' motivations. All the justification in this movie is based off of what Caesar would do, or what they think Caesar would do, whether or not it's true. I think in terms of plot and storyline, this was pretty much on par with the first 3. It's very different in tone because it goes back to like sticks and stones type of like tribal warfare than the other ones had like guns and still had that human technology. So it's a little bit different in tone, but I think in terms of storyline and plotline, it's pretty much on par with the other 3. I would say though, this movie does excel way past the other 3 in visual effects. This movie took, I think, 7 years to make. They had so much going into this, all the beautiful environments, all of the CGI, it's crazy. There's one specific scene that I am thinking of that is my favorite shot in the film, and it is Noah looking into a telescope. And the CGI on this, on his eye, on the skin texture, the way that the telescope reflects the light onto him, is just so stunning. And I really just, I really love this scene, and the artists that worked on this did a really good job of bringing you into this world with their creations and just making things that are so beyond what is our reality seem so real. It was very much on par, to me at least, with Avatar: The Way of Water in terms of the world building and the effects, but just a little bit different tone. The action in this movie was pretty limited, I would say, but when it happens, it's really good. There's a scene they show in the trailers that was probably my favorite scene, the most hype scene for me, and it's when Noah and this gorilla are both chasing in the middle to meet May, or Nova, and try and save her. This is just a really cool scene, and it has a lot of tension building up to it that makes it even better. So I'm just going to give it a quick rating overall before I get into kind of some of the spoilery stuff and kind of my interpretations of some things that happened in the film. So overall, I'm probably going to give this a 7 out of 10. It was not my favorite movie, but it is a good movie, and I know that people who are fans of the franchise will be fans of this movie. So yeah, 7 out of 10. I don't really have any notes specifically on it, aside from maybe more Proximus and better relationship building between some of the characters. Okay, so now kind of getting into the spoilers. This movie had some interesting parallels that I wanted to point out a little bit that I thought could have been directly intentional, or it might just be me reading into things, I'm not exactly sure. But the main character, his name is Noah, right? And in the final act of this film, again, one last spoiler warning, but in the final act of this film, they have stumbled across this vault that Proximus is trying to open that has a bunch of old human technology. Tanks, guns, all sorts of weaponry that would essentially force evolution upon these apes and bring apart, more power for Proximus. So, Proximus is trying to get into the vault, May and Noah are trying to stop him from getting into the vault, and May needs technology inside the vault. So, Noah is going to help her get in, and then they're going to flood it with water so Proximus can't use any of it. In this, it ends up getting flooded, and May is actually the only one who escapes. She floods it and leaves them, and Noah and his tribe and all the other apes are left in this flooded thing. And Noah ends up saving these apes from the flood. And I thought this was a very interesting parallel and probably directly related to the Noah's Ark story from the Bible. Now, I am not a very religious person. I don't know these stories by heart by any means. Most of my reference from this is from the movie Evan Almighty with Steve Carell. But I just thought it was interesting the way that they had him as this, Noah figure, saving these people from the flood, kind of taking charge and saving them. And even more, I don't know exactly if this is what happened in the movie, because all of these apes kind of interacting, we don't get to see all of them. We don't know which are a part of which tribes. But in Proximus's camp, he has collected a bunch of different tribes that he essentially stole. So there's all these different tribes in this camp, and Noah essentially saves a lot of them. I don't know if it's just his tribe, the Eagle Clan, that got out, but in the end, Noah ends up taking all of them back to their home, back to the Eagle Clan. So, in one possibility, he's this Noah figure that saved people from the flood, right? That's it. He just saved his clan and they got out. The other possibility is he ended up getting a bunch of different people from all of these different clans collected by Proximus. Like, they all made it out. And in this way, this furthers the Noah metaphor, I guess, where he saved a bunch of different categories of these people, like Noah saving the different types of animals, the different species of animals. This Noah is saving the different tribes and the different clans of this world, and it kind of symbolizes, after Proximus's death, them entering a new era, a new world that is cleansed of this war that Proximus was trying to bring upon them, for the apes and the humans to possibly coexist. And this coexisting is going to be a very big part of the next two movies in this series. The director of this movie, who just so happens to be the director of the Maze Runner movies, which were pretty good, did say that this is setting up a trilogy. So I can definitely see a few ways this trilogy could go. Coexisting is going to be the biggest part of it. These humans who are now have the technology that they require to communicate with other humans around the world and try to contact them, because of May getting the stuff from the vault, are going to eventually come in conflict with Noah and his tribe. I'm guessing. So my guess is this could either go two ways. It could become full-on head-on conflict between Noah and May as like leaders for their groups, and they could come against each other, kind of like a Obi-Wan Anakin starting off as friends, ending up full-blown enemies. Or I could see them as peacemakers for their groups. Their clans end up going to war, their people all fight each other, and they're caught in the middle trying to keep the peace, trying to make things right, so they can coexist. This would have been my initial thought after watching the movie, except for one shot that we get where May is talking to Noah, and she comes back to say bye to him, and she has a gun hidden behind her back. I think this kind of gives us a little bit of leeway into the fact that she does not fully trust Noah. She never has, and she's only been using him as a means to an end. And I think, based off of some of the ways she's talked about apes, or just the opinion she's expressed, she doesn't think very highly of them, and she wants her planet back just for humans. I think just the commentary of these movies is really important too, and how we treat animals. Apes have a very smart brain. They are very similar to humans, and the fact that we keep them in cages and stuff like that is very upsetting, and this movie does not shy away from that. I think that it continues kind of what the first movie does in that animal sanctuary that Caesar is placed in, and kind of the horror that we see these animals go through being in that situation. And this kind of shows basically hundreds of years later what these apes think about that type of situation, how like mind-boggling it is to them and how upsetting it is to them still. But overall, I thought this was a really good movie. I thought it had some really cool symbolism in it. It just wasn't my favorite. I don't know that I'm going to be itching to watch it again as soon as I can. I will watch it again. It's just not top of my radar. And it's a long movie, and you feel the length of it, so I would definitely keep that in mind if you're going to go watch it, which I would recommend seeing, especially if you're a fan of the three movies. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later. Make sure to subscribe, please. I'm trying to get those subscriptions up, yo. See you later.